Hey there, brothers and sisters. Um, whew, I'm gonna be working very hard to keep all of you guys up to date on what's going on around the world. I highly suggest and advise that you all do your own due diligence. As I've been keeping track of what's going on according to the book of Revelation and the prophecy of Christ in Matthew 24 as far as the signs of the end of the times. It's really it's really big. Obviously we're waiting for the Euphrates River to dry up, and we're waiting for the man of sin, aka the Antichrist, to reveal himself. However, right now, there's the coronavirus that's affecting everyone, but there's more than just that Christ said would be present. So I'd like to pull up scripture here because Christ said we cannot be hypocrites, okay, being perfect at predicting and looking at, weather signs, but being ignorant of the signs of the times. So let's jump here to Matthew 24. We need to be informed here about what's going on biblically. We cannot be fooled. The birth pangs are becoming stronger and getting more frequent. Okay? So, let me zoom in for you guys here. Alright, 24 verse 3. Okay, as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of birth pains. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Okay? So, right here we have the answer. Okay? Once the gospel of the kingdom has been preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, the end will come. Okay? So what exactly is going to happen around this time of the end? Christ says, so when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be great distress unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe it, for false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, there he is out in the wilderness, do not go out, or here he is in the inner rooms do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, the vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. Okay, so right here, the Great Tribulation is going to occur when the abomination of desolation stands in the holy place. Okay, so the temple which will be built by the Antichrist has not been completed yet, but it will be. And do not let anyone fool you into thinking that this is referring to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Because in the context of Matthew 24, Christ is explaining what's going to happen at the end of the age, at the end of the world. Okay? So do not let anyone deceive you into thinking that this has already happened. Remember, the apostles clearly asked him what will be the sign of his coming in the end of the age or the end of the world. Okay? Christ explained everything that will happen clearly. So, once the gospel of the kingdom has been preached, okay, to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, then the end will come. Okay? And around this time, around the end, all right, the abomination that causes desolation, all right, spoken of by Daniel, standing in the holy place, that's where it's going to be the great tribulation. And that's why Christ was saying if those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. And so this is talking about the last 3.5 years of the final week in Daniel's prophecy. Okay, and this is also the same 3.5 years or 42 months or 1,260 days spoken of in the book of Revelation through John. Okay, and right now we have, after Christ died, was buried and resurrected, and went back to heaven, there have already been many people calling themselves the Messiah and deceiving. Okay, there have been wars and rumors of wars since Christ returned to heaven. Okay, but Christ said, don't be alarmed, these have to happen, but the end isn't here yet. Okay, nation and kingdom have been rising against one another, and there have been famines and earthquakes in many places. Okay, so we're in the beginning of the birth pains right now. And shortly after, okay, right before the Great Tribulation, we're going to be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and everyone is going to hate us for believing in Christ and God. And then at that time, that's when many are going to turn away from the faith and betray one another. Okay? And that's going to be where more rise of false prophets will come up and deceive others. So right now, with all these different things occurring around the world, such as the coronavirus, different sickness and disease and the war, people are getting scared and they're starting to try and protect themselves. Right now everyone's scrambling to be every man for himself. So we're getting close to this middle portion right here. Now, okay, well, where do we go? How do we get it? How do we get ahead of this? Christ suggests that, that we flee to the mountains. Okay? And when we go to the book of Revelation, and we go over to I believe it's chapter 12 here. Okay. Where does God help the woman flee to? He helps the woman flee into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. Okay? So for those of us who get ahead of it, God has prepared a place for us to flee into the wilderness. Okay, notice God did not allow the woman to flee into another city, into the open field, where there's a lot of lush greenery or anything. No, he helped her flee into the wilderness where he would take care of her. All right. Then we have this war that breaks out. Satan fails in that war. And then it says, "But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows that his time is short." Okay? And what does he do? It says, "Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus." All right? So, we need to be ahead of the ball here, brothers and sisters. And so, here, in Revelation chapter 19, okay, we read about the rider on the white horse. "I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse whose rider is called Faithful and True." Okay, so here, the rider on the white horse, okay, he stands against the beasts and the kings of the earth, all right, and their armies, and he defeats them. Okay, and then right after this is when Satan is in prison and the 1,000-year reign of Christ begins. So this coincides exactly at the same time of the timeline given in Matthew chapter 24 here. Well, let's go back there. Okay. So it says, "Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Okay? So right there, that is proof that this is going to all happen around the same time. And speaking of the sun being darkened and the moon not giving its light, let us actually go back to the book of Revelation here. And believe it's in chapter 8. Or maybe it's in chapter 9. Oh, no. It's more towards the beginning of Revelation here. Sorry. Okay, there it goes. So in Revelation chapter 6, starting in verse 12, it says, I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red, and the stars in the sky fell to earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The heavens receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. The kings of the earth, the princes, the generals, the rich, the mighty, and everyone else, both slave and free, hid in caves and among the rocks of the mountains. They called to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of their wrath has come, and who can withstand it? So, it's clear here that that this perfectly lines up with it perfectly lines up with what we just read in Matthew chapter 24. And actually, let's go also to Hosea, the prophet Hosea. And it should be chapter 10. Okay, here it goes. In verse 8, it says, the high places, so this is Hosea 10, verse 8. The high places of wickedness will be destroyed. It is the sin of Israel. Thorns and thistles will grow up and cover their altars. They will say to the mountains, cover us, and on the hills fall on us. Okay? So, we see, brothers and sisters, that this all lines up scripturally. So let's go back to Matthew 24 here. Okay, now, let's go back to this link I got up here on YouTube. Put it on full screen. So, here you can see this is live right now. I should probably minimize this so you guys can well, there it goes. Live monitoring earthquake worldwide 3/3/2020. Magnitude 5.4, South Sandwich Islands region. Okay, so these are not all 5.4 magnitude earthquakes. However, as you can see, just as we read and Christ spoke of, there are all these earthquakes in various places. Here you have 2.1, and then these ones, it's kind of, I don't know, the video's blurry. Let me see if I can sharpen the quality here. Okay, so here, look at that. Here we are in the U.S. We have 3.1, 4.2, 3.5, 3.0, and I mean, look at that string of earthquakes up there. Okay, then here we have 3.5, 3.1, some other 3 points. Okay, then like things are shifting to South America. Okay, more 3 point something earthquakes, and then as we get to Africa, we see that the seismic activity is shifting. Okay, it's hitting Europe, 3.6, 4.3, 3.2, 3.5. I mean, look at all of the look at all of this activity. It is just like and look, this is all happening at the same time that the coronavirus is trying to be put under control. Okay? Look at that, 3.8, 3.4, 3.8, 3.4.1, 3.3, 3.7. These are around the Philippines, Australia, and I believe this area right here is like Indonesia. Okay. Um, I mean, just look at all of that activity. Okay, and then, whew, all that activity that was just there, and then look how it's affecting. I believe this is. I can't recall these islands. I don't think they're Tonga or anything like that, but 4.5, 2.1, okay, 3.4, 4.2, 3.1, 3.5. So we'll get out of this. Now, where is this guy getting his information from, or this gal? Okay, let's read. Okay, disclaimer. We are not volcanologists, geologists, or scientists. We use only officially verified sources for reliable reporting and information exchange. So the media sources, USGS, CSCM, EMSC, IRIS, okay? So when this video goes up, obviously you can pause it and, you can read it more in detail yourself, but those are that's the source of information. Now, let's go to the history tab over here. Or you know what, better yet, so you guys can see it for yourselves. Let's type in locusts. Now, we'll go here to the filter to see what's been posted in the last hour. Okay, so here, East Africa struggles to fight locust invasion, locust plague 2020. Okay, Locust Town Center aerial tour. All right, and here, we got like a bunch of junk. So now, let's go to what has been posted today. Look at that. Coronavirus and locust. The bats arrive in Saudi Arabia. Okay. Locust eggs found across Sin cities. Okay. Millions of locusts invade Dammam city, blanketing the skies. Alright. Locust plague. How China sent 100,000 ducks to fight worst locust attack in decades. That was posted 5 hours ago. Okay. And then, CS Munya says locust infestation will be wiped out by June 2020. Yeah, right. All these things going on at the same time. So let's go see what's been posted within the week. Look at that. CNN reported 3 days ago, locust swarms threaten the food supply of millions. Okay, another one by ITV News, locusts destroying crops and leaving farmers helpless in Kenya. Alright, and if you think this is not catching on internationally, well, got some news for you guys. So, let's go to my history tab here. Here, this was posted by the United Nations.
So this to say that this is really now that
Desert locust upsurge in the Greater Horn of Africa press conference, February 10, 2020. Okay. So there's that going on. It's like we have the earthquakes, we have the coronavirus, and we have this locust swarm hitting. Okay? Now, it's all like coming at the same time. So what about famine? Here we have a hunger crisis in Zimbabwe. Okay, and actually, let's change the filter. Let's see if anything was reported in the last hour about this. Oh, oops. Sorry, guys. Okay. Um. Okay, Malawi. Let me zoom out here. So we have Malawi food crisis. Oh, that was too far. Okay, Malawi food crisis, March 2020. This is posted 13 minutes ago. Let's see what they got to say about that.
We are here in Sakata village, Sondole area. Alhamdulillah, we are distributing here to 1,000 families. What happened on the ground is we had made a parcel of 40 kgs of maize, 10 packets of soya, and 2 liters oil for each family. Now, looking at the dire situation on the ground, we decided to divide it into two, so it comes 20 kg maize flour, 1 liter oil, and 5 packets soya to each family. The reason being is because of the situation here and the hunger situation. So by doing...
Okay, you guys can obviously watch that more on your own. Okay, it's not that much posted within the last hour, so let's see what's been posted today. Famine 2020, empty shelves. Famine and confusion. We see that there are other people aside from me reporting on this biblically, what's going on biblically. Okay. Not seeing a lot of like reporting coming from big mainstream media, so let's see what's been posted within the week. Well, a lot of independent posters. Look at that. United States, empty shelves in 30 days. February 29, 2020, coronavirus empties U.S. shelves in 30 days. Boy. So we've got to wake up and get our affairs in order quickly. Okay? Dang, why is there not a lot of reporting on this? Okay, let's see what's been reported within the year. I mean, as you guys can see, I mean, the governments do not have things under control. Okay, now we finally got something. Oh, look at that, World Vision. Unboxing the 2020 30-hour famine digital kit. Whatever that means. Okay, we got drought occurring in Zambia from British Broadcasting. or from the BBC. I mean, everyone is stockpiling. Actually, you know what? Let's go. Let's click see what the DW News has to say. So, I mean, it's like just because we don't have a famine crisis hitting here at this time, doesn't mean that we're not going to feel the impact. Oh, man. Ads are annoying.
There is a race against time in South Sudan with warnings that parts of the country could tip into famine in the coming months. Devastating floods that submerged entire towns have destroyed crops and killed livestock. The World Food Programme says 5.5 million people are facing hunger early next year.
Kibor, the capital of Boma State, is normally a
Okay, I will let you guys look at that at your own time. I'm here really just showing how rapidly these things are occurring. I mean, we already got stuff with the wars and things like that, and actually, you know what? Let's go back to my history here. Something else I want to show you guys is I heard about this bat crisis. Here we go. Queensland under siege by bat invasion. Queensland, Australia, that is.
The noise is deafening, the stench worse, but locals are powerless to get rid of them unless they break the law.
This is just like from a horror movie.
It was like a bat tornado over the town. That's how bad it was.
It just seems to me that every bat in Australia is now in England.
It's a town under siege. Overrun by bats that outnumber the population by hundreds of thousands.
It just stinks. It stinks.
Infiltrating every corner of the town, putting lives at risk.
What was your biggest fear when you got scratched?
Am I gonna die? Like, what's gonna happen?
Get rid of the bats. We've had enough. It's been going on for way too long.
It's mid-morning in Ingham in North Queensland, and in the centre of the normally quiet town, there's a cacophony of screeches.
The problem that we're having is that we're seemingly being influxed by more and more animals, and the roost cannot handle it.
The botanical gardens are overrun with bats. Every inch of every branch is covered with them. Mayor Raymond Jayo says they've now reached biblical plague proportions.
It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare. It's truly disgusting.
Some of the trees are so full of bats, they're constantly breaking from the sheer weight of them. The bus stop, footpaths, even the town's cenotaph are covered in bat feces. But at night, it's far worse.
This is what locals here have to put up with every day. There's hundreds of thousands of bats flying around. The noise is horrendous.
And this was posted February 5th, 2020.
Long after the bats have flown away for the evening.
And listen to this here.
3 confirmed cases of bat lyssavirus in humans. All 3 were fatal.
There's no question that
in Australia, there's been 3 confirmed cases of bat lyssavirus in humans. All 3 were fatal.
there's no question that flying foxes do carry some diseases, but you have to actually be scratched or bitten by the animal for that to be transferred to the human.
Des Boylan is from...
So we see not only is COVID breaking out, but now we have these bats flying around and scratching people, and now though they're carrying diseases and they're breaking out in Australia. Okay. And just so you guys know, they're not only breaking out in Australia. Actually, where did I find this here? I think like in a earlier clip that I watched. Yeah. The bat swarm is also in Saudi Arabia. So it's not just it's not just in one part, folks, that these bats are flying to. This is just yeah. So also there's an update on the number of deaths. If you guys haven't been keeping up, let me pull up my history here. From the coronavirus. Oops. Let's go to history. Okay, this was posted March 2nd, 2020. 6 coronavirus deaths in Washington State. King County declares emergency. Right. There should be a little clip here. And this is from Q13 Fox. I guess that's one of their local Fox stations over there. Come on.
We're undoubtedly observing this is a complex and unprecedented challenge, locally, nationally, and globally. I'm very grateful to what our frontline healthcare providers are doing to treat these patients and the number of patients that we know they will continue to see over the coming weeks and months. I'm also grateful to our colleagues at Washington State Department of Health and from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A team arrived last night. We have now 17 CDC members here helping us with infection control, epidemiology, contact tracing, and understanding the impact of the early stages of this outbreak in our community so that we can plan for the days and weeks and months ahead. Now, it's very important for everyone to remember that the vast majority of people who are infected with COVID-19 have a mild or moderate disease and do not need hospitalizations. On the other hand, it's obvious from what we've just discussed that this infection can cause very serious disease in people, particularly people who are older and have underlying health conditions. We expect the number of cases will continue to increase in the coming days and weeks, and we're taking this situation extremely seriously. The risk for all of us of becoming infected will be increasing. And although most of the cases will be mild or moderate, the infection can cause serious illness, and there's a potential for many people to become ill at the same time.
I want to provide an update to our people.
Okay, so there's that. Let's close this up and we'll go back over here. Something else I wanted to share with you guys.
It's a bloodbath on global exchanges. Despite all the warnings, investors are doing exactly what we're not meant to do in a situation like this. They're panicking. The Dow Jones had its worst one-day point drop in history, tumbling almost 4.5% yesterday. I'm scared to look today. Like so many people who hold stocks, the virus has well and truly infected Asian exchanges. Shanghai's composite down by 3.7%, a similar case for the Nikkei in Tokyo, considering that they could be calling off the Olympics. We're not sure yet. It's planned for July, August, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng closed down by almost 2.5%. I've been hearing stories all day of panic. Lots of travelers have been cancelling holidays, people in some parts of the world stockpiling food, others stashing away medicine or hoarding protective masks. Chemists here in Berlin have been running out. Disinfectant is in high demand, and supply chains in general are faltering. The urgency all mirrored on financial markets.
Markets around the world are sinking fast. It's the worst week in a decade for global stocks. And investors in Hong Kong are the only ones seeking safer territory. In London, where some firms like Chevron sent their workers home this week, the FTSE dropped 4.5% early on Friday. Elsewhere in Europe, losses on Frankfurt's DAX index reached more than 5%. Germany's and the world's biggest chemicals maker, BASF, says it's braced for the unpredictable impact of coronavirus. Lower demand and production outages in many industries are already visible consequences of the measures taken to prevent the further spread of the virus. We anticipate that the adverse effects of the coronavirus will have a significant impact worldwide, particularly in the first and second quarters of this year. As the coronavirus continues to spread to more and more countries, so does its negative impact on their economies. This is Milan in northern Italy, Europe's worst affected area. Normally busy tourist hotspots are now deserted and restaurants are empty. The International Monetary Fund says it's still getting to grips with how deep the global effects will be.
The virus is going to have an impact on growth. A lot just depends on the speed of recovery in China and in other countries, the spillover effects, the effects on supply chains.
With concern about the economic and health implications of coronavirus growing, governments are looking for global solutions. But experts warn that the world is not prepared for what may be down the road.
Okay, let's bring in Andrea Heng in Singapore and Chelsea Delaney in Frankfurt, our financial correspondents. Chelsea, starting with you, crash or correction? What are we seeing here?
I think for now it's a correction that could very easily turn into a longer-term crash. Investors are very concerned, A, that this could turn into a global recession, but B, also about the unpredictability of the situation. We don't know at this point how much further the virus is going to spread, what this is going to do to businesses, if it's going to lead to more production shutdowns, to more supply chain disruptions, how this is going to impact consumers. So there's all these big questions that are really unanswerable right now. But if this does turn into a global recession, this could certainly put an end to this 11-year rally in stocks that we've been in.
We've had good times. Andrea, to steal a term of yours, the numbers are dropping like flies today, but what's interesting is there's no single safe haven that investors are running to.
You're right. Over there, it was red. All of the markets, probably redder than the jacket that I'm wearing right now. Even here in Singapore, stocks were tumbling down to a 15-month low. The benchmark STI dropping down to 3.2%. But since you're asking, there actually is one safe haven that investors are looking to park their money at in these jittery times, and that's technology stocks. Now, according to one report, investors found that technology stocks are the more resilient ones compared to traditional blue chip stocks, and so a lot of people are pumping their money in there. Analysts say that there are two reasons to this. It's a show that the government, Chinese government particularly, is introducing the right support measures amid the outbreak, but at the same time, it's also because Chinese consumers themselves are starting to look at technology stocks and technology products ever since the US sanctions on China.
Okay, Singapore is a hub of oil activity. Tell us what oil markets are doing this hour.
Well, obviously it is tumbling there as well, but the coronavirus isn't the only reason for the lower numbers in the oil markets. There's also one other culprit, and that's Asian demand in general. Now, just to give you some numbers, Ben, analysts say that the demand in Asia for refined oil products is going to tumble rather, and that number is 380,000 barrels per day. Now, just to give you a comparison, that number in 2019 was 780,000 barrels per day. It's a lot to do with the slower economic activity in China, yes, due to the coronavirus outbreak, but also with the recession that's looming because of the US sanctions. They're putting a lot of pressure on the Chinese economy, so demand generally is slower, and producers are slashing operating rates. Climate change is actually the second biggest reason behind this, with warmer than usual winter months.
So you see here that it's not only, the coronavirus is not the only thing affecting everyone. There's a domino effect. We see that while the coronavirus is taking center stage on the world news, we just saw how there's locusts, there's famine, and there's earthquakes in various places, all striking at the same time. So there's a good reason for the world who is not preparing their hearts clearly for God, why they're afraid, and they think that somehow money is going to save them. But it's clear that money will not save them. There's something else I wanted to share with you guys here. Let's see what Bloomberg is talking about. Oh, and for those of you who are interested, if you live in the Texas area, San Antonio got hit with corona. You can view that for yourselves. WHO, they're not able to do anything. Here we go.
Phenomena that will focus the mind on which companies should be helped. And to understand this, we talk about the so-called bullwhip in supply chain. What happens is, assuming a retailer sees its forecasting system and what it sees on its point of sale system tells it that X% less demand is coming in. Now,
all right, so if you guys want to watch that for yourselves, there it goes. Virus-related supply chain disruptions to get much worse. MIT's Sheffy warns. Okay. So you heard from his mouth right there, live from Boston. This was posted February 27th. Okay, so only a few days ago, about a week ago. Supply chains are being hit.
As of this morning, we didn't know, and it will be a slowly evolving story, revealed as we see how many cases of coronavirus sickness we get, and then start to judge the attitude of the American public, whether they're willing to travel or not. And it's a big question mark.
And you also have energy. Oil's really taking a hit.
Oil's taking a hit, yes. It's down, I don't know, about 10%. The problem for oil is that this year especially there is significantly more supply than demand. But going forward, there isn't much supply growth coming. When you look at Exxon and Chevron, who reported just the other day, neither one of them last year replaced all their production, which is a first for them in a long time. There's dramatic underinvestment in productive capacity in the oil world, and what a lot of people forget is that depletion is real.
So you can see and just smell the fear everywhere. Everyone's trying to save their money. They're trying to prevent their businesses from going under because they were not expecting such a heavy hit. But yet they keep trying to reassure themselves and everyone else on the media that, or in the world, I should say, that, oh, we've got it all under control. No, you guys don't. Clearly you don't. And brothers and sisters, we just saw the evidence for that many times over. With the earthquakes, the famines, plagues, and let's also look at what happened to let's look at what happened to Japan.
The coronavirus is no longer just a Chinese phenomenon. It has skipped borders and reached new regions across the world. At least 65 countries reporting confirmed cases of the disease. New global hotspots are driving up the number of patients with each passing day.
The coronavirus is now spreading faster outside China. The number of cases have flared, and the disease is now traveling to more countries. South Korea, Italy, Iran, and Japan are the new hotspots for the coronavirus. South Korea is the worst affected country outside China. In Daegu, the South Korean army was seen disinfecting the entire city. At the center of this outbreak is Shincheonji Church of Jesus, a South Korean religious group. It is believed that members of this group are responsible for transmitting the disease across the country. Earlier today, the head of the sect appeared to apologize to the nation. He got on his knees and bowed in front of the cameras. In Italy, the confirmed cases shot up by 50% on Sunday. The streets in major cities are empty. There is a state of panic. Even the Pope fell prey to speculation and conspiracy theories. In his last public appearance, he was seen coughing and sneezing. Officials later clarified that the Pope has a cold. In Italy alone, the number of cases have breached the 1,000 mark. Simultaneously, the disease is spreading across Europe and other parts of the globe. Even the politicians are not immune to it. In Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel's interior minister refused to shake hands with her. There is a crisis in West Asia too. The disease is spreading across the region from Iran. More than 50 people have died in Iran alone. But some reports claim more than 200 lives have been lost. West Asia is feeling unsure of Tehran's capabilities to handle the outbreak. At least 7 government officials themselves had contracted the virus. One of them, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has died. India has confirmed 2 new cases, one in Delhi and the other in Telangana. The patient in Delhi had travelled to Italy, while the one in Telangana has a travel history from Dubai. The Wuhan coronavirus that was born in China has now been exported to the world. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Okay, so we heard a little bit about Japan there and the other countries it's affecting. But now, let's go here to what DW is saying.
Financial markets in Asia have mostly steadied out today after a week where the coronavirus outbreak triggered huge losses around the world. The number of new cases reported by China has dropped sharply, but the epidemic is still spreading rapidly in other countries. The total number of infections around the world now exceeds 89,000 people. More than 3,000 have died. Indonesia and several other countries are reporting their first cases. Officials in Italy, the worst-hit country in Europe, said the number of people infected with the virus jumped by 50% to nearly 1,700.
Not a tourist in sight. The canals of Venice without its famous gondolas. No sound of fans cheering in Milan's football stadium either. Across Italy, 5 major matches have been postponed due to the coronavirus. As new infections climb dramatically in Europe's worst-hit country, the Italian government is imposing more drastic measures. Army checkpoints control quarantine areas in some regions, and emergency aid has been promised to the sectors hardest hit by the rapid spread of the virus. In France, tourists line up outside the world's most visited museum, the Louvre, on Sunday, in vain. They were not allowed in the building after the museum staff voted to keep its doors shut due to fears of contamination from the flow of tourists.
I want to go to see the Mona Lisa, the painting, but unfortunately it's closed, so I'm a bit disappointed.
The French government has banned gatherings of more than 5,000 people, closing down trade fairs and large sporting events. Even though a half marathon in Paris was officially called off, hundreds of runners defied the ban and ran the full course.
I'd signed up to take part in the marathon, and since I had nothing to do this morning, I thought I might as well go and run. It was my goal, and if I can do it, why not? We have to stop all this paranoia with what's happening. We have to keep things in perspective.
In recent days, the US, Australia and Thailand have reported the first deaths on their soil. But with more than 50 deaths, Iran has the world's highest toll outside of China. The epidemic is impacting businesses and daily life and shaking the country's already struggling economy.
People are panicked a little, and the stress has led to a drop in sales. People have also become more hygiene obsessed and buy less food from bakeries, restaurants and caterers.
As markets around the globe take a hit, some countries are more vulnerable than others.
Let's talk about the economic consequences now with Gerhard Elfers from DW Business. Hi, Gerhard. Last week was pretty bad for the global markets. What's the picture like today?
Well, it's a bit better today. Asian markets have recovered. Also, European markets have opened slightly up. The FTSE is up 2%. But it was a slaughter last week. $5 trillion have been wiped off shares. That's 5,000 billion US dollars. It's quite unbelievable, and it's not going to be the end of it. There's a study out. It says that if this pandemic lasts another 6 months, which is quite likely, it will wipe $1.1 trillion off global GDP growth. So it is pretty serious, even though there's a slight recovery today.
Okay, so what are governments and central banks doing to offset these losses?
Well, they've just only begun to put things into motion. There's not so much they can do because it's mainly a supply chain issue that is hitting world trade at the moment. China is the world's workshop. There's hardly any big company that does not manufacture something in China, gets parts from China, raw materials from China. So that makes it difficult. One rather striking example, Jaguar Land Rover in the UK, the car maker, has actually sent employees by plane to China to hand carry parts back to Britain because the supply chain is so disrupted. And what governments can do, of course, Germany has said it will make money available. Germany has a big surplus, so it is rich enough to do that, to help the economy. Italy is slightly different. They have said they put 3.6 billion to the side to help the Italian companies that are affected, but Italy doesn't have that much money anyway, so it's slightly different. And central banks, of course, can do something. They can make money cheaper, they can lower interest rates, but since it's a supply side issue, not a demand side issue, cheap money doesn't really help that much.
So where do you see things going from here?
Well, we're going to see more earthquakes, if you will, economic earthquakes, and while people stop traveling, the airlines are in trouble. The oil price is dropping because demand is low. So there's a chain reaction that's going on that we're going to have to report on quite a lot in the next couple of months, I think.
And you'll be taking a closer look at that coming up on DW Business right after this show. Gerhard Alfers with us. Thank you. Well, the European Union has been presenting its response to the coronavirus crisis, and DW's Terry Schultz is following that story for us in Brussels. Hi, Terry. Good to see you. There has been a press conference. What has been announced?
The European Commission very much wants to give the appearance that while they're taking the corona infections very seriously, everything that can be under control is under control. So European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was flanked by 5 commissioners from the economy, from home affairs, crisis response, transport, and health. And each one of them spoke to their own particular expertise. But they said that the response overall is being coordinated under 3 main pillars. And one is medical, one is mobility, and one is the economy. Now, it's important to point out that each member state has its own crisis response, and each one of them makes their own decisions. So the Commission is saying, hey, count on us for a certain amount of coordination, but we don't make the decisions for member states. They also wanted to update the figures on infections. There are now 2,100 confirmed cases across 18 member states and 38 deaths.
Terry, what is at stake here for the EU?
The Economics Commissioner Paolo Gentiloni said that the stakes are very high economically. He said that early expectations that there would be a fast drop followed by a fast recovery may have been too optimistic, because we certainly don't know that we've seen the end of it yet, that there's any containment in sight yet. And of course he spoke about the fact that when China is suffering something like this, of course it impacts the European Union. And that's not the only place. You have a lot of very worried citizens. And each commissioner said in their own way, don't panic. But you have a lot of travelers who are either having their flights canceled or canceling the flights themselves. And there are a lot of questions about what kind of compensation might be available. And it looks like this is going to be one of those sort of acts of God situations where you're not going to get compensation. So there were a lot of questions at this press conference that went on almost an hour, and there will be many more questions to come. But the main message right now is don't panic. We've got we've got control of everything that can be under control, and we're watching very carefully. And there is now a new website where people can get all of the up-to-date information from the European Commission.
Correspondent Terry Schultz reporting there for us from Brussels. Terry, good to talk to you.
Schools in Japan have shut down to contain the spread of the coronavirus. It's a precautionary measure announced by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe last week. The decision affects some 12.8 million students across nearly 35,000 schools around the country. The schools are meant to remain shut until spring holidays that begin in late March. Japan has so far reported a little more than 200 cases of COVID-19, the disease caused by the new strain of coronavirus.
School's out for millions of Japanese children. But while the youngsters get an extended holiday, many parents are faced with a logistical nightmare. They need to make alternative childcare arrangements while the schools are shut.
I think companies need to be flexible in dealing with the situation. I really didn't think that the virus would infect so many people. It's good to close the schools, but a lot of parents work today, so they have to take some time off. I feel sorry for them.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the drastic measure was necessary after a meeting with the country's coronavirus task force on Thursday.
There are many efforts being made to stop the spread of infection among children in various regions, and the next 1 or 2 weeks are crucial.
The announcement took local government and health officials by surprise. They've been scrambling to come up with guidelines to implement the closures. And some politicians have warned that the risks posed by shutting schools also need to be considered. The mayor of Chiba, Toshihito Komage, tweeted, "What about parents in occupations that support society? How will they manage? Society could collapse." But with opinion polls showing public dissatisfaction with Abe's handling of the coronavirus outbreak, it appears the Prime Minister is betting on school closures as an effective strategy to bring new infections under control.
For more, joining me from Tokyo is journalist Michael Penn. Michael, thanks for being with us. The first day of the school shutdown, how has it been?
It's been a little chaotic. Lots of companies and lots of their children are scrambling to try to deal with a situation that was unforeseen until just a couple of days ago. Obviously, for the kids, they may or may not be happy to be out of school, but the parents, many of them who depended on their kids being at school so that they could go to work, many of them are in considerable trouble because they have to take time off from work or to figure out how to do teleworking. And this is not just 1 or 2 people in the office. It's essentially everybody who has kids, and all at the same time. So it's been a major adjustment, and they're still going to need time to figure out how it's going to work.
Has it basically just been left to the parents and to the other relatives of the children to try and figure out this shutdown? Is the government assisting in any way?
Essentially, Prime Minister Abe just requested for example, Shimane Prefecture in western Japan, which completely ignored the Prime Minister's request, and there are other schools as well. But yes, essentially it's been left to all the various school boards and all the various local governments.
So, yeah, as you can see, brothers and sisters, this is, yeah, well, please do not be foolish like the rest of these people. Money will not save us. The government will not save us. Our only true source of reliance is God. It's already, we already went over the fact that we went over the prophecies already in Matthew 24 and how it correlates with what's in Revelation and in the prophets. And, you guys just saw and heard how all parts of the world are being affected, not just by the virus, but also by the famine and the plague and the earthquakes. So, while all the world leaders are trying to keep a straight face here. Everyone's feeling it, and it's having a huge negative impact. So the question is, what are we going to do to prepare for it? Are we going to wait until it's too late, or are we going to take precautions now to start to start getting ourselves in order first with God, and getting our families in order if we do have families, and well, according to Christ, the only places realistically to flee to are the mountains and the wilderness. So, again, just to look at this bigger picture here, like prophetically speaking, the Euphrates River has not completely dried up. The sin of man has not revealed himself, and the abomination that causes desolation has not been set up in the holy place. So yes, those things still have to come, but look at the birth pangs, people. They're getting stronger, and they're beginning to increase with frequency. So I pray that all those who took the time to listen and watch, you'll be convicted and really get your affairs in order.